Happy Sunday, everyone. And yes, it is Sunday, 5 p.m. Central Time, or whenever you find time this week to watch this episode. I am so happy that you chose to join me this week. As always, my name is Beverly Johnson, owner of Genesis Fitness, and I am so happy that you're spending a few minutes today with me as we talk about this week's topic. Now, first, how's your week been? Has it been a good week? Have we all finally adjusted to daylight savings time? Have we all finally accepted that it is 5 p.m. and it is get my mic straight, that it is 5 p.m. and it is officially dark? Now, I have finally adjusted to the time change, but my dog has not adjusted to the time change. As soon as it gets dark, she looks at me like, well, my bowl, you should be filling my bowl. And I'm like, okay, yeah, normally I would be feeding you right now, but it's 5 o'clock. It's too early. And she still looks at me like, so you going to feed me or nah? And I'm like, the answer's going to be nah, because you still have an hour to wait. I can't feed you at 5 o'clock because it's just throws off the whole thing. But that's neither here nor there. So this week's topic is something that you saw in the tagline that is called Let's Talk About Diabetes. But more specifically, let's talk about prediabetes, because that's the space that many people find themselves in, and you don't really quite know how to navigate it. Now, I came up with this topic because I know people. I have a friend of mine, well, a former friend, that was impacted by prediabetes because his family had the traits of it. Yes, or my dog, it's a struggle for all you pet parents. I feel you. It's a struggle because our dogs don't understand the time shift. So I'm coming back. I know I squirrel. I have the Dory syndrome where I'll drift someplace else. So we're talking about prediabetes, and I have a friend of mine that had prediabetes, and in that space, he really struggled to understand what was going to be the next step, because primarily in his family DNA, he was already predisposed to diabetes. And so at that time, his doctor pretty much said, you are already on that slippery slope to go into becoming a full-blown diabetic, which he did. So in some cases, if you're predisposed to diabetes because of genetics and your family history, there may be a chance that this is the beginning of the next phase. However, that does not always apply to everyone. So when we talk about prediabetes, what does that actually mean? To be pre-diabetic means that you have a higher than normal blood sugar level. However, it is not high enough to be considered type 2 diabetes. And with prediabetes, without lifestyle changes, adults and children with prediabetes are more than likely to develop prediabetes, which means you're right in that realm of becoming type 2 diabetic. And here are some of the signs that come with being pre-diabetic. Now, most cases, you may not have any symptoms. As my friend I was mentioning earlier, he didn't have any symptoms. So when he went to get his physical, it wasn't until he got his physical and the doctor started explaining to him that his levels were right in range for becoming a diabetic. Now, understand that, I'll repeat again. To be pre-diabetic, there may be instances where you don't have any signs or symptoms. However, there are some cases where if you don't feel like yourself, this may be a great time for you to go get your physical. Those symptoms include increased thirst, frequent urination, excessive hunger, fatigue, and blurred vision. Pause. Y'all, if you are out here with blurred vision and you have chalked it up as being normal, that's kind of problematic. You should not be out here with blurred vision. That means you out here in these streets trusting Jesus because you can't see. So again, some of the symptoms that you may be experiencing: increased thirst, frequent urination, excess hunger, fatigue, and blurred vision. Now, what makes these symptoms scary is because these are some of the same symptoms. Hey, mama, these are some of the same symptoms that also mimic high blood pressure. So if you are along the lines where you are experiencing blurred vision, fatigue, increased thirst, excess hunger, frequent urination, these are the signs that your body is yelling at you that you should get a physical. If you have insurance, more than likely your insurance covers your annual physicals. Use the benefits that are available to you. Now, we're not going into the whole dynamic of talking about the disparities in the medical field, not talking about that, another topic for another day. We're talking about you using the resources that are available to you to get the health benefits that you need. Again, we're talking about prediabetes. And for those that don't know, if you are in, hey Donna, hey Bestie, if you are in the range of being a pre-diabetic, you may not have any symptoms. So the only way you're going to find out if you're pre-diabetic is if you go to the doctor. And a definition of a pre-diabetic again is, and my computer's locked up. Oh, there it is. That pre-diabetes means that you have a higher than normal blood sugar level. It's not high enough to be considered a diabetic, but it's high enough for the doctor to be concerned about your health. So you may be in that range. As the classic signs and symptoms that you move from prediabetes to diabetes include increased thirst, frequent urination, excess hunger, fatigue, blurred vision. Can you find out if you are pre-diabetic looking at your A1C numbers? Yes. And that's what I was trying to find in my notes, because the range for pre-diabetics has dropped. So it used to be where when your blood sugar numbers hit a certain spot, it was spot on that you were diabetic. But over the last decade, the numbers to show that you are in your pre-diabetic range, they have dropped, which has thrown more people into the pre-diabetic spaces. And so in the research, I found that roughly 1 out of 3 Americans are in the category of being pre-diabetic. And I know you're like, well, what's the big deal? That equates to roughly 88 million people who are pre-diabetic. And that does not include the ones that don't display any signs or symptoms, that don't know they are pre-diabetic. So when your causes of being pre-diabetic, they're really unknown. But it shows that our family history and our genetics play a huge role into that. And it's also showing that if you have had a space, what are good numbers pre-diabetic? Before we go into that, Joseph, send me a DM and I will look into that for you and send you all that information, because I don't want to just go off the cuff. I will research that for you and send me and give you that information. So if you could send me a DM and we'll research it. You don't have the numbers with you. Thank you. And so when we're talking about those things, that one thing that it points to at all times is that a lack of regular exercise and being overweight can often contribute to the signs of becoming pre-diabetic. And I know you're saying, what does that have to do with anything? You tie that into a lot of spaces where the pandemic pounds for some people are becoming problematic. And so you have us going back into the winter months, going back now into cold and flu season, on top of the pandemic, the coronavirus still raging. It almost creates a perfect storm of what's going to happen. And so right now, the more information you have about your health and wellness, the greater your chances are going into the new year with a strategy plan about how you're going to tackle the new year and a plan to have a wellness strategy. So when I talk about a wellness strategy, it's not just about going to the gym. It's about looking at all facets of what you're doing. So one of your resolutions for the new year should be, I'm going to get a physical so I can find out my numbers. I need to find out what my blood sugar numbers are, what my cholesterol looks like, what my iron looks like, so I can walk into this new season prepared. Because so many times we talk about breaking generational curses and we leave it of finances. We say, if I got money, I've broken generational curses. A generational curse is also in our health and wellness. So some of the risk factors for going into type 2 diabetes include your weight. Being overweight is a primary risk factor for prediabetes. The more fatty tissue that you have, the more resistant your cells become resistant to insulin. Your waist size, your diet. We're talking about a diet. We're talking about eating red meat, eating highly processed meat. We're talking about highly processed meats. We're talking about the things that are like in the frozen food section, because to a degree, all food is processed. You just looking on the spectrum of how much processed, unless you plan on eating raw. All our foods are processed. It's just when we get into the space of being ultra processed, where foods have no nutritional value. And so you'll see that in a lot of foods that are in the frozen food sections, like your pizzas, the little roll-ups, the rolls, where yes, they can get you full, but they have no nutritional value. So we're talking about a diet. So we want to look at having a diet where we're limiting our sugar sweetened beverages. I don't know if y'all still drink it or not, but Kool-Aid, sodas, super sweet sweet tea, like the ones you get from certain franchises that sell chicken. When you're drinking a lot of that, it contributes to a higher risk of prediabetes. A diet high in fruits, vegetables, nuts are often associated with a lower risk of prediabetes. So as you can see, when we're talking about going into the new year, your wellness strategy could include drinking more water, limiting the sodas, changing my diet. And I'm not encouraging that you go for broke and do a whole diet swap at one time. But I'm encouraging you to start substituting one thing for another thing and change out something else. And so then that way you have an idea about where to get started. So again, your wellness strategy, because if you're in a space where the doctor may have started to utter these words, pre-diabetic, to you, this is not the time to become apathetic about your health. We can get excited about trips. We get excited about sales. We get excited about all this other stuff. But when it comes to our health, we become apathetic. It's like, well, if it happens, it happens. If I gotta go, I gotta. If it's my time, it's my time. And to me, that's a cop out, because you can take ownership of everything else, but we let our health become second standard. If I get sick, I get sick. I ain't gonna worry about it. And that's always been mind blowing. I'm telling you, it happened to me. What? So, wow. And so Karma, you know the fear that comes with being diagnosed as pre-diabetic. Another risk factor is that inactivity. The less active you are, the greater risk of diabetes. It's a big deal. It hurts. Oh, I'm sure, because everyone that I know that has been diagnosed with prediabetes, it's a wake up call. It's that bell that just goes off, and it's scary, because a lot of times we grew up hearing about sugar in the community, that Big Ma got sugar, Pop got sugar, and they automatically went on insulin. And with that, nobody made any diet changes. Nobody made any fitness changes. It's just like, I got sugar. I got to take this insulin. That's my life. And so one of the things, another risk factor, as we're saying, is inactivity. Physical activity helps you control your weight, uses up sugar for energy, and makes the body use insulin more. Okay, turn it down. Thank you, Charles. And it makes your body use the energy more effectively. Another risk factor, another risk factor of prediabetes is age. Although diabetes can develop at any age, the risk of prediabetes increases after 45. So once we start turning, well, y'all, I'm just playing. So once you start getting into your mid 40s, you start seeing subtle changes in your body. This is me. I have, oh, wow. I can't tell. Now, gestational diabetes is one topic that I don't know much about because I don't really know too many people that were impacted by gestational diabetes. Thank you for that. So I'd like to learn more about that one. If you can, send me a DM on the Genesis Fitness page, and we'll talk about that one also. And so now we're seeing that you have people in the chat that have living examples. Ah, got it. That are in the chat that are examples of telling you the experiences that they have had with diabetes. So as you can see, it's not been something that doesn't happen. There's no respect of persons about who is impacted by prediabetes. Another thing, and I see Ro, you set me up for it. Right to the next one. Family history. If you have a risk of prediabetes, it increases if you have a parent or a sibling with type 2 diabetes. So we're saying that we want to break generational curses. Health is one thing that we also can break in our family, the generational curses. I had gestation. I remember you told me that, Donna. And see, Donna, you just set me up for the next risk factor. Another risk factor that increases your odds of getting type 2 diabetes is gestational diabetes. So if you have had diabetes while pregnant, you and your child are at a higher risk of developing prediabetes. And so if you fell into that category, Donna and Ro, it is encouraged that you check with your doctor every 3 years to make sure that everything's okay. Thank you. And one that impacts a lot of people, and I put myself in this category, is sleep apnea. People with obstructive sleep apnea, a condition that disrupts your sleep, you have an increased risk of insulin resistance. So if you are in a space where you know you don't sleep well, and by sleeping well, you wake up all night, you tossing and turning, you just don't get any rest, that may be a sign of you developing sleep apnea. So again, when you have your physical, because that's on our wellness plan for January, go get our physical. January, physical. Explain to your doctor that you may have some symptoms. Explain to your doctor that diabetes runs in my family and I want to make sure I'm not pre-diabetic. Oh, and by the way, doctor, I haven't been sleeping well. Can you refer me to a sleep doctor? Because those exist. And that sleep doctor will give you a sleep study. I feel like this topic isn't talking. Thank you. And you will get a sleep study. And in that sleep study, you will just find out whether or not you have a case of sleep apnea. And sleep apnea, they will give you the equipment and the machinery. You will look like Bane in the middle of the night with that thing on your face. Yes, you will look like Bane with that thing on your face. It is for all of us. Yes, you will look like Bane. But I would rather you look like Bane and have a great night's sleep. And so you see that all these different things can impact your wellness. And the last one, smokers. Smoking may increase your insulin resistance. So when you look at all of this in the totality, this topic was not to scare anybody. This topic was not to be presented as doom and gloom, but this topic is a reality that I am bad at. Y'all don't put your CPAPs on. Put your CPAPs on, dig them out the closet, and everybody, we're gonna look like Bane tonight. We're gonna look just like this, but you're gonna feel better. Because overall, our wellness takes priority over everything else. Your wellness impacts your livelihood. Your wellness impacts your careers. Your wellness impacts how you interact with your family. Now, those were not put in any particular order. But your wellness takes priority over all the other stuff. Because without your wellness, everything else won't fall into play. Last year, there's the gentleman that do my lawn care. Super great people. He got sick. And because of his illness, he was out of work for 3 months. Now, being self-employed, I'm just guesstimating his salary, but being self-employed, let's say he was making $5,000 a month. He was out of work for 3 months. So out of 3 months, he lost $15,000 of his livelihood because he was sick. I don't know what he had. Wasn't for me to know. But you think about all that stuff. All I know he told me was that he couldn't leave the house. He was on his back for 3 months until his body healed. So we can place priorities on trips, events, and all this, but there's only one you. There's only one body. And going into the new year, let's take care of ourselves and go into with a strategy on how we're going to do this, because some of this in order to get to where you need to be requires you to have an honest conversation with yourself. It requires you to know that to admit I haven't done the things I'm supposed to. I know I'm not where I need to be. And in order for me to create a legacy for the ones behind me, I have to own my ish. So that may include that, I got these pandemic pounds. My joints are hurting. I don't feel like I used to. I'm not sleeping well. My body aches. That means it's time for me to own my ish and get back to the things that I know. Because the worst statement that I hate to hear people say, as I said earlier, well, we got to go from something sometimes. What's the big deal? The big deal is who you're leaving behind. The big deal is, should you get sick and end up with a disability, that's a living death. And then those that you have left behind are now have the responsibility to care for you. And that's something none of us want anyone to have to deal with, to care for you in your most vulnerable state. So if you are in a space that you haven't used your benefits for your doctor, what are we going to do? Go get a physical. What are we going to do when we get the results? Follow up and develop a wellness plan. And by a wellness plan, if they tell you that, your blood sugar levels are going up, your cholesterol is going up, to hire or partner with a trainer or a nutrition coach to get your numbers back in control. That's part of the wellness strategy. To know I'm not where I want to be, but I know I have to do the things that are required. So before I leave out, what is prediabetes? It means that you have a higher than normal blood sugar level, but it's not high enough to be considered type 2 diabetes. What happens if you do feel like you have symptoms and you're not quite sure? Signs of diabetes include increased thirst, frequent urination, excess hunger, fatigue, and blurred vision. So these are the signs. And if you are experiencing any of those signs, go see the doctor. This is the time of year where if you have insurance and you haven't used your benefits, this is the time to go use it to get the care that you need. Because this is one of those topics that are near and dear to my heart, because I have a close friend that is diabetic. And he and I are the same age, and he's already had to have body parts amputated because of diabetes. I've had coworkers that have had to have fingertips or toes amputated because of diabetes. And all these people that I'm mentioning are under the age of 50. So this is not an old people disease. This is not a when I get old disease. This thing can impact all of us. And when I say an amputation, there's no respecter to body parts of what part of your body diabetes will impact. So it can be any body parts. Know the signs. Be aware of your body. Pay attention to your body. And as we go forth into this year, the goal is for you to sit down. We're not making New Year's resolutions, because you stick that on your refrigerator and you don't do nothing else with it. It's just on the refrigerator that you're going to turn up. And it's on the refrigerator. The one from 2 years ago is probably still on your refrigerator. But this year, we're going to develop strategies. And with strategies means you have goals. And with goals mean you're holding yourself accountable. Because we're breaking generational curses going on in 22. Because if this pandemic hasn't shown us anything, we have learned that this ain't playing with nobody. And that you don't have time to assume that you will have time to get it right. I'll say it again. You don't have time to assume you'll have time to get it right 6 months from now, next year, 4 years from now. We don't have the time to waste. And it all starts with taking control of our health, taking control of our wellness, and being brave enough to own our ish, stand in it, and grow from it and heal from it. So if you feel that you're unsure of your numbers, or you just be feeling ick, go see the doctor. With my job, I have seen what we do not have time. Absolutely. And for those of you that are sitting in the chat wondering what Donna McClendon is talking about, Donna McClendon works for a funeral home. She's a crematory operator. And she's seen the impacts of people who have had their bodies ravaged by diabetes. She's seen what happens when you've had your bodies ravaged by poor health. And it's not a scare tactic. It's a real thing. And so while you have the means and opportunity, there's only one you. There'll be a bunch of cars, bunch of clothes, bunch of trips you can get flued out on, but there's only one you. And I'd rather have you here with me than talking about you doing the steps necessary to take care of your body than hearing about you getting sick and you having to go see Donna. I mean, we love Donna. Donna's the bestie. But we don't want you to go see her just yet. No, not for a long time. We don't want you to go see Donna yet. But we want you here and we want you healthy. So that's all I have. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. You all be blessed. You all be great. You all be amazing. And I will see y'all later.